Let me go ahead and open up in prayer, and then I'll take any questions that we've got and launch right in, and that'll be the first one to tackle. Father, thank you again for the ability to come and learn Greek. I pray that you will strengthen our minds, strengthen our souls, and just give us the ability to push on through. I recognize that I'm asking a lot of everyone here, and I pray that it will be well received and that you will give the strength to master the material. Amen. Okay, so the first thing that was asked of me was to pronounce the double consonants.
Yes.
So specifically, you are looking for things like
the future tense when you're using the Z or the C, how they sound in the word.
Oh, okay.
Because I was looking at vocabulary and going, I'm not sure how this would sound if you said it.
Okay, and I do apologize for that. I know I said that I would put a video up on pronouncing the vocabulary because we didn't get to it. And again, I didn't get to it. So if you'll turn to page 23, the first word there when you get there.
Well, this was easier than the next one.
Is ago, and the next one is pronounced oxo. Oxo. Akuo.
Akuo.
Akuso.
Akuso.
Baptizo.
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 Blepo.
Blepo.
Blepso.
Blepso.
Grapho.
Grapho.
Gropso.
Gropso.
Didasco.
Didasco.
Didaxo.
Didaxo.
Doxaxo.
Doxaxo.
Wait, dox. Should we doxaxo?
Doxaxo.
Doxaxo.
Doxaxo. So the first syllable is da. This is the stressed syllable. Xa. Zo.
Why an A?
What now?
It's not do.
Da. Xa. Zo. Am I?
Omicron. Ah.
Ah. This one?
It's an A or even O?
It's an ah. So your O versus your ah. Hello.
Can you say that one more time, please?
Da. Sa. Zo.
Can you explain why A instead of O?
Short.
The Omicron is a short letter. Ah. Ah. And it sounds virtually like the ah. If I were to write this out for you, and this is not transliterated. Transliterated, it would look different, but this is how you'd almost pronounce it. Da, xa, zo. And it's a mouthful. Da,
That's right,
xa,
too.
zo. Lots of frills everywhere. And then the future of that is doxa, so. So. Doxa, so. Hetoi magzo, for those of you who just came in, it's page 23, pronouncing the vocabulary from last week. Hetoi magzo versus hetoi maso. Echo versus hexo. I can give you a really complicated explanation for why it becomes hexo if you want to, but I figure that we'll just say that it has to do with some phonological mumbo jumbo for right now.
So is that the root, hecticos, and the brackets to the right?
Heck, yes. That has part of to do with the explanation, is the original root is heck.
Can you say it in echo?
Echo is the present, and hexo is the future.
And so pronounced hexo because it has the two little things?
Because not the two little things, it's the, yeah, so here we have echo, and let's just get rid of the accent mark so you're not confused. Echo versus hecko. Rough breathing mark versus the smooth breathing mark. Then we have therapuo. Puo. U is in eulogy. U. And therapuso. K-ruso versus K-bruxo. Luo. Luso. Patho. Peso. Soto. So-so. Amy. May. Boo. And since I have people just join us, let's see. Again, that's for extra practice, and I stressed before you got in here, I would really like to see everyone do one of these and turn it into me for the sole reason that it might give you a little external motivation. The way that this class is structured, you didn't have to pay for it, you don't get a grade for it, you don't get credit for it, so you don't have much external motivation to do it. It's just you doing it. Now, internal motivation is the best way to get you to do something. If you want to do it, you're going to do it. But this might give you a little extra nudge. And it also tells me where everyone is. So if you can do it, then great. If it really is abrasive to you, then don't. If it'll quench the internal motivation, then it's not good. That was the first question we had. Any other questions about last week's material?
Are you going to go over the home?
We will.
Good.
That is its own little section in my agenda that I have to do to make sure I get through everything. Now, you don't say you have any questions, but after the 2 quizzes that I just got, which were excellent, they were both over 100, there was one particular question I asked on there for extra credit. For all of you that haven't done it, it looks like you'll get a little more of an advantage. I asked to parse a verb. And how about we do something similar to that, but not give you the exact one.
So there's 5 things about the word?
Yes. So you were watching videos, were you not?
I also read the book.
Well, it was there too. But we didn't cover it in the book very, very much, so I'm going to ask you to parse doxases. When I ask you to parse a verb, this is one of those exercises that's purely academic, but at the same time, it helps to dissect the verb. Right now, it's not as important because we're only covering certain tenses and certain moods and certain voices, so it doesn't seem as important to you now. But once we start to pile these on later on, it gets to be very important to be able to dissect them. So when I ask for you to parse it, doxases.
I think that's deductive.
Yes, it is. It's doxases.
Test it.
I have the tendency to pronounce a word that is not there or translate a word that is not there, right, Scott?
No.
Okay, so parse doxases. I'm looking for these things: the root or the lexical form, the tense, the voice, the mood, the person, and the number. Now, one of the reasons why I heard you say tense and then person, I think it was because we've only covered really tense, person, and number. We made mention when I covered lesson 2 of these things, voice, mood, but we didn't talk about them that much. So when I first asked you for the lexical form or the root, what is it of didagzes? Didasco. This is the form that I'm looking for here is not the one that we break apart to conjugate. I'm looking for the one that you actually memorize as your vocabulary.
Oh, okay.
The tense, what's the tense of this?
Present.
Future.
Future.
Oh, future. Oh, that's right. That's the exceeds. That's right. That's right. Present.
So why is it future?
The
The
exceed.
sigma and the kappa.
Right, so if we have here didasco, right?
Yeah.
Now this is where we got to the thing that we called conjugation. We broke it apart for the lexical form or the root, didask. We cut off the person, number, suffix. Then we added the sigma for the future, and then that key, kappa and the sigma combined gave you exceed. So that's what that tells us. This is a future time morpheme. The voice is, can only be one voice right now because that's all we've covered. Active. This tells us who the actor is, or what he is doing, or is he being acted upon. The mood, though, is indicative. Good. Indicative mood. This tells us that it's a statement about reality, whether it be true or false, corresponding to reality or not. Person? Second. Good. So here is our person, number, suffix, and it tells it's the second singular. Good. That was relatively painless, I'd like to think.
So you actually threw out the sigma, kappa, sigma to get the exceed.
You don't worry about this one because this one's not the one that's coming into contact with the other sigma. It's just the letter that is at the end of the root.
So there's not one on the top. In front of the exceed.
It's probably because I spelled it wrong.
Oh.
That's what it says in the book.
Oh. I think that what happens here, that's right, is you have the sibilants just kind of morph into that.
Gotcha.
So once you do this and have, they won't suffer that extra sigma to be there. It's almost, yeah, so it goes away.
I thought it was because the root is didak.
It is. Yes. I'm trying to simplify all of the phonological things here. But if you do look there, didasco, didagzo, if you look in the note, it's I teach, I will teach, and then he has this little sign for didak.
Okay.
Though the present form is didasco, the true root of the form is didax.
Meaning the name of the verb.
Sometimes.
All right, I'm going to simplify some terminology for us. He calls, and I know that he knows more than I do, but he calls this the root of the word. We're going to call that the root of the word. He also calls this the lexical form of the word, which is where I have a little bit of I think the vocabulary blends together. So he calls this both the root and the lexical form in the vocabulary. But I'm going to call the lexical form what you will actually see in your lexicon. You will see it conjugated in the first singular present form. So you will find it didasko, not didak. This is your root. And this is your lexical form. Does that help? Okay. Sorry for the confusion. Any other questions about chapter 4? No, 3 we were on. And now we want to do the homework, correct?
Please.
All right, does anybody want to do number 1? Pronounce and translate.
Lefise?
Left base.
Lefise?
Mm-hmm.
You see? Is that right? Or you will see? You see.
UC.
Lefise?
Face.
Rough base. It's okay.
You right?
Good.
Who? Convey. Conveys.
Good.
Do not send?
No.
No. Not.
Not do not send, because that makes it a
Send.
hmm?
Isn't
Yeah.
it OU?
It is do not, or not do not. It is negated.
Right.
But if I tell you do not
It's
send,
impaired.
that's in an imperative mood.
Okay.
But we are talking about fact or reality.
You are not sending.
You are not sending,
Aha, thank you. Okay.
or you do not send. Number 2.
I'll do it. Age baptize ulue. He leads, he baptizes, he does not loose.
Okay, very good. Remember, he's had Greek in high school.
Yeah.
So,
That was a long time ago.
so good, very good pronunciation, very good translation, but don't be discouraged. And this one here as well, I'm going to call him out, even though he's being very good,
Okay.
had Greek in seminary. So,
Why are you even here?
Dale's here too.
okay, number 3.
Aku Solomon is we here. Etomai Somen, we prepare. U Pisto Umen, Pisto Umen, we don't believe.
Okay, good translations so far as pronunciation. Aku amen,
Aku Amen,
hetoi magzo,
Etoi Magzo,
upistu amen.
U Pistuam.
Good, good. Number 4.
I'll do it.
All right.
Grafete. Hey, Bete, who. So, Zete.
Good.
You all write, you all trust in, you all do not say.
Very good. Questions? All right, number 5.
Aldo.
Great.
Lavusen, they see. Didaskusen, they teach. Luusen, they not lose, they do not lose.
Very good. Loosen. They do not loose or destroy. Good. And I know you don't have these done yet, but this is one of the things I like to do in a class, which is to engender the ability to sight read. So we will, and Ingrid knows very well about this, don't you? Can I get a volunteer to pronounce number 6 and translate?
Is it Baptiste?
Yep. Good.
He, she, it, baptized.
Good.
Didaskomen?
Didaskamen.
Just a minute, let me write that down.
It's just the Omicron.
They all-
Yeah.
yeah. We teach. Aku, Osen?
Remember the ook in front of that? Ook, aku, usen. Look good?
And they don't hear.
Very good. Continuing.
Sozo, do I save?
Good.
Therapue, do he, she, or it saves?
Does.
Does.
Mhm. It's just, yeah.
Pembusen, do we send?
You got this right on the quiz.
Do they send?
Good. Notice the semicolon there, which we don't know how to use, so it's a question mark to us.
Now, I thought Therapue or whatever it was.
To heal. Did I?
Was to heal, and she said to save.
Okay.
No.
That was the first one.
The first one was.
Yeah,
I thought
the
she said
first one
twice.
was.
Okay.
Okay.
He hears or will he hear?
Now, is there a way to tell whether it's a he, she, or it?
Only by the external subject. Remember, we had a discussion last week about,
I just want to make sure.
and we're going to get to that chapter this week. As soon as we start seeing those external subjects, sometimes we try to translate the internal one and the external one, and that gets a little confusing, but we'll get there. Number 8. And this one's probably more difficult than the rest of them, not the psychial.
A, you are.
Yep,
Esmond, we are. Este, you all are.
very good. Number 9. Some other bold soul.
Akuse?
Akuse.
Akuse. No, I'm sorry, he hears.
Good. Or,
Yeah, he, she, it.
or,
He will hear.
yes.
Okay. Baptise, he, she, or it will baptize.
Mhm.
And excesse. Hexe.
Hexe.
Okay. He, she, or will have.
Yes. And we'll stop there. Leave you hanging on the last 2. You can translate those for extra practice. And if you miss those, really do go back and retranslate them yourselves and make sure that you have the ability to do that. All right, so this is the point of no return. Ask your questions before we move to the next lesson. And if you don't have the ability to ask them right now, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and you can ask me at the break time if you have any. Anything for the class? All right, lesson 4. You know what we just did with verbs?
Yeah.
Right? We just conjugated them. Well, it's called something different. It's called declining nouns, but it's somewhat similar. We're going to do that with nouns now. We talked a little bit about this last week. Word order. Word order can be manipulated in Greek in a way that it cannot be in English. English determines meaning based upon the placement of words, right? James hits the ball is different from the ball hits James, or ball James hit. We can somewhat make sense of that, but when it starts to get to be a more complex sentence, subject and object, their placement within the sentence matters quite a bit. The way that we have to determine meaning, so far as Greek is concerned, are what we call cases. So we're going to look at the nominative case, the genitive case, the dative case, the accusative case, and the vocative case. You have examples in your book that he gives you. He says the nominative would be something like men see the apostles. The wisdom of men would be the genitive. He gave gifts to men, indirect object, and the object would be apostles see men. For my sentences, James hits the ball. I'm only giving you these sentences as an extra English example because you've already got his in the book. So James would, in the Greek, appear in the nominative case. It is called, in grammatical terms, what? The subject of the sentence. So the bat of James hits the ball. Of James would be in your genitive case, and it's simply a descriptor. Some of you may be thinking, well, that's possessive. And it is. That's one of the uses of the genitive case. In English, we wouldn't necessarily say the bat of James hits the ball. Probably say, James's bat hits the ball. In your translation, you would do that as well, but to illustrate, the simplest way to translate a genitive for now is of whatever. The dative case. I'm going to change my sentence. Keep the theme going. The boy hits the ball to James. To James is in your dative case. And in English, what do we call that grammatically? It is the object, indirect object. Accusative would be James hits the ball. The ball would be in the accusative case in Greek, and it is the
Object.
direct object, right? We'll have a lot of objects, the object of the preposition, the object of the infinitive, the indirect object, and the direct object. That's why I'm being more specific about which object. And finally, the vocative ball. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory in English. It would be any word like, oh, James in a command, or anything like that, a sudden outburst in order to get the attention of the person you're talking to. O Lord, have mercy on my soul. This will probably be the most complex of your sentence, and if you were to go through here, the bat is your nominative, or the subject of the sentence. Of James would be the genitive of the sentence. Hits is the verb. The ball is the direct object. And if I were to add to left field, that would be the indirect object. We don't like grammar in English.
I moved every year
Oh my.
that we were gonna have grammar.
But this is important. It'll teach you English grammar. The reason it's so important for Greek is for your first few translations, you're going to be hunting around in your Greek sentence. And you need to be able to say this ending is, well, I've learned it as the accusative ending. So that means it's got to be the direct object. This will be one of the more difficult things to get our minds around. The verb was pretty simple. This is a building block for the rest of the class. Not that the verbs weren't, but these easy sentences, just keep these in mind. James does the action. Hitting is the action. The direct object receives the action. The indirect object, as I'm sure you can guess, indirectly receives the action. Left field. The ball is being hit to left field. Now, I want to keep it simple like this to begin with, but each of these, do not be deceived, like every other language, is a little more complex. The nominative can have different uses. The genitive can have different uses. The dative can have, they can each have specific nuances depending upon the sentence. But we will get to them, and they will come naturally after time. They will.
How much time are we talking?
What now?
How much time are we talking?
Well, hopefully only until May.
When is
I'd like to
part
say-
number 2 going to be?
What now?
When is part number 2 going to be?
After my wife releases me from baby duty.
About 18 years.
I got a little more sway than that, or at least I hope I do.
Nope.
Now, I'll probably take a break during the summer, and if at all possible, pick it back up when I go back to school in the fall. So there'll be a couple-month break, and then we'll get back to it. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm not going to leave you with Greek 1 and not be able to go on to finish the grammar, because that would be a waste of my time and your time in this class.
That's when he takes over.
Yeah.
All right, next here on page 27 is gender. This is probably the thing that most English speakers hate about learning any and every other language. Because most other languages have gender, and English does not. English obviously has masculine, feminine, and neuter, but only as it relates to actual autonomy. Now, sometimes we do say, look at my car, she's a babe. We will use anthropomorphic language in order to describe objects like our boat, our car, things that are particularly dear to us, our house. But Greek, each and every noun is going to have a gender. It's going to be masculine, feminine, or neuter. We're about to study what's called the second declension. And you might be thinking, what happened to the first? It's coming. He decides to choose the second declension to learn before the first because you'll find more nouns in the second declension. It's more helpful to learn those. And it's a simpler declension than the first. There are 3 declensions in Greek. In the first declension, nouns that are feminine are virtually the only nouns that are in that declension. There are some exceptions. In the second declension, nouns that are masculine and neuter are virtually the only nouns in that declension, though there are a few exceptions. And in the third declension, you'll have all 3. We don't need to worry about the third declension for a very long time.
So, can you say that again? The first?
First is feminine. Second is masculine and neuter. Third is all 3. Susan, you got to be happy that this is not like Latin where you have 5.
I had to take that for a year and a half.
So we have second declension. That's what we'll be studying here. In case you're wondering, declension means to fall away from the Latin. And it is essentially a falling away from the nominative. As you fall down that nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, vocative. Any questions? Now here's where the questions will begin. First, we'll look at the masculine. When you're creating your charts, much like your verb charts, you'll have singular here on the left-hand side, plural on the right-hand side. It's helpful to go ahead and write out the cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. And vocative. I won't use this for a bit. Here are your endings. Os. Oo. O. On. F. Now this F is the only unique vocative form. Everything else will be the same as the nominative. It's the only unique one. In your plural, oi, own. Here's the beautiful thing about the genitive plural. The own ending will be consistent throughout all your paradigms, or virtually all of them. You always have to say the word virtually, because there are exceptions. Dative is ois. Accusative is us. And vocative is oi.
That's all straight.
What does this mean? It means the same thing as the verbs, so far as attaching. We have the noun, for instance, you've got this one in your book, and pro pos. This is the lexical form of the word. This is what you will find when you look it up in the dictionary. In order to decline this noun, like the verbs, we find the root. And we do that by subtracting the ending. Os. And then we just go through our paradigm. On, throw, pos. On, throw, who. On, throw, oh. Anthropos, anthropou, anthropo, anthropon, anthrope, anthropoi, anthropon, anthropois, anthropous, anthropoi. I meant to actually write these in the other marker. What does that mean?
We don't have the double consonants here, so we're not going to have any aggregation issues. Okay. Amalgamation. I was going to say aggregation.
Is that too?
Amalgamation.
So what does this mean? This just means a man. Of a man. To a man. A man. Man! Men. Of men. And mice. Two men. Men. Men! It's raining. I'm a comedian.
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah, it was. Took you a bit there. Any questions about that? So we've got our nouns, and if you, yes?
So it's an indefinite article, not a definite article by having those endings?
It is all indefinite. So far.
Sometimes.
Yes, sometimes. Now look, I warned you of this at the beginning of the class. At the beginning of the class I said, what about definite articles? You will have 24 of them. There are 24 different ways to say the. We're not getting there yet. And there's good news about it. The way you say the is virtually the same way as you decline these nouns. But as we have it here, it is all indefinite. If I were, since you were asking, ha, to, ton, boy, tome, toys, tus.
Why do you have that mark on the omega?
It's called the iota subscript, and I'm not sure where the development of classical Greek was. It may have actually been a part of the word when you studied
So
it.
it's just a contraction, dropping.
The only reason I somewhat know this is because I just got done reading massive grammar. But at one point in the language, the iota subscript used to be a part of the word, but the pronunciation of an omega and iota made the same sound as the pronunciation of the omega alone, so they just put it underneath the word. And so it still has significance so far as the meaning of the word is concerned, but at the time it was not pronounced any different as it would be if it were a part of it. So it's a notation to tell you that it's in the dative, does nothing else, so far as pronunciation is concerned.
And it seems like the vocative is just an exclamation point.
It is, for English.
Yeah, okay.
And the only way you'll tell the vocative from the nominative in all the other instances is the way that the sentence is structured.
Can you give a biblical example of where that might be used?
Oh God, why have you forsaken me? Now I'm not sure if that's specifically one, because I don't know the Greek there, but that would be one. A lot of the times you'll see the vocative is with the word the'e, from theos, which means God. This means, oh God. Although some of your translations won't have that. It'll have God with an exclamation point or God, comma.
So that's a good description of God nominative and God vocative?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So this is theos,
okay.
the'e. Where are you? There or there. You able to breathe yet? I hope so. If you'll look, this is what I was coming over here for, at your vocabulary on page 31. You have angelos, which means angel. Agros, field. Adelphos, brother. Hamartolos, sinner. Anthropos, man or person. Apostolos, apostle. Diakonos, minister or deacon. Doulos, servant or slave. Thanatos, death. Theos, God. Jesus, Jesus. Cosmos, world. Kurios, Lord. Lithos, stone. Logos, word. Nomos, law. Oikos, house. Aklos, crowd. Huios, son. Christos, Christ. I went through all of those just so you can know how they're pronounced. I know I went fast, but those os endings, that's how you will know that it is masculine. Now the Greek has something beautiful about the genders of the words. Os is your lexical form. If it's got an os on the end, 9.5 times out of 10, it will be a masculine noun. So there's very little guesswork when it comes to gender. If you look on down in your vocabulary, you also have your on endings. Jumped ahead. So your neuter nouns of the second declension, doron, ergon, euangelion, hieron, teknon, those are all neuter. That on ending is your neuter. And then he has your exceptions there. Eremos and hados both have that os ending, but they are feminine. And how do you know that? That he article right next to the side there tells you that it's masculine or feminine or neuter. Ta means neuter, he means feminine, and ha means masculine. Most of the time, memorizing that article along with a word is not necessary. Memorize it when it's different from the ending. But unlike most other languages, you know, just by memorizing a vocabulary word. Questions here, because we're about to move.
Oh, it does use they eat, they ate.
In that particular verse?
Yeah.
Took a pot shot and I got it right. Woohoo. Where did I put the...
On the floor there.
Thank you. You have this down for the masculine? Not necessarily memorized, but... Now we're going to do the same thing virtually with the neuter. This, I know, is the not so fun part of language. We're going to do the same thing for the neuter. Singular, plural. Your nominative is on. Your genitive is ooh. Ooh, we've seen that before. Your dative is oh, great. Less things to memorize. Your accusative is on. Again. Your vocative is on. Now look, when you get the masculine down, the neuter is a cinch. The plural is ah. Your genitive is own. Your dative is voice. Your accusative is ah. And your vocative is ah.
Jacob,
Yes.
vocative singular, is that on or?
On.
On.
I think you get the point. So for the neuter, your nominative, your accusative, and your vocative are the same forms. And lucky for you, the nominative of the neuter is the only, say that enough times, unique form of your masculine. So if you memorize the masculine, you can reproduce the neuter just by memorizing the nominative. See that? So, os and oi are different with your neuters on and off. But if you know your nominative on and off are the singular and plural respectively, then you can just go down to the bottom of your chart and fill them in the blanks for the accusative and the vocative. And then you can say, okay, I have these missing ones, and just go straight from what you memorized for your masculine and fill those in. It's wonderful for memorizing the paradigm. It's a little more tricky in translation. So let's take the word Dobron. Declining it, we have, first we find the root, right? Declining it, we have Doron. Doru. Doro. Doron. Doron. Dora. Doron. Royce. Ra. Writing like that kind of messes you up. Here we are.
What is the door?
A gift.
Oh, that's right.
As in to donate.
Okay. Oh.
So this means gift. This means of a gift. To a gift. 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 Gift of, or gifts rather, of gifts, 2 gifts, gifts, gifts. Christmas Day. All right. Your homework, obviously. You still have a lot of time, but I'm already talking about homework, I know. Your homework is primarily vocabulary and memorizing these paradigms. I'm trying to make the paradigms as easy as I can for you by pointing things like this out, but to some degree, you'll have to memorize them. The other thing I'll help you do to memorize them is we're going to do the same thing we did with the alphabet with the paradigms, which means you're going to get tired of speaking in about 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Sing them?
I'm not going to sing them, sadly. I don't have anything to sing them with. But we will just monotonously go through os, oo, o, on, oi, own, ois, oos, oi, os, oo, o, on, ed, oi, own, ois, oos, oi, os, oo, o, on, ed, oi, own, ois, oos, oi, os, oo, o, on, ed, oi, own, ois, oos, oi, on, oo, o, on, ah, own, ois, os, ah, on, oo, o, on, ah, own, ois, ah. Now, this was one of the things that I did forget to mention. As we went through there, did you notice anything? Other than the fact that looks too much like a new. Any observations? No.
No.
Okay, well then in translation you're going to start observing things. What you should observe is your accusative and your masculine, singular, is the same as your neuter, singular nominative, accusative, and vocative. So what does that tell you?
Less to memorize.
No, a little more of a strain on the brain. Yes.
How do you know which is which? I think is the issue.
Yes. Now that you can say less to memorize. Now memorizing less means memorizing more in the sense that you have to memorize that the accusative singular is the same as your neuter accusative. If you memorize that rule, then yes, you've got this whole paradigm nailed. You only have to really memorize that letter. But what it does is it means that you have to know the neuter of the noun you're working with. Because this can very easily be the neuter singular nominative or accusative or vocative. Does that make sense? You've got 4 forms that are the same that are translated different for each form. This will tell me if I know that anthropon, if I know that that comes from anthropos, and I know that it's masculine, and the only form that it could be is accusative. If it's doron, and I know that it's from doron, well then that doesn't help me as much because now it can be the accusative or the nominative or the vocative. But knowing masculine or singular, in a lot of instances, because your masculine is the most common form, it will limit it to just the accusative.
You mean there are more masculine nouns
Yes.
than neuter nouns?
There are.
Oh, okay.
I think he has that statistic in here somewhere where he explains why he does it the way he does. He says there's 595 second declension nouns, 347 of which are masculine, and 196 are neuter. Okay. Okay. This doesn't help us too much if we don't start translating. Doesn't help us too much if we don't memorize. But what's really important here, as well as memorizing, is to see from an instructor or from somebody that's pointing it out how to translate these sentences now that we've got case involved. And I don't know how this will be with those of you who have learned Latin, but even when I learned Latin after learning Greek, it was still a big puzzle to get it fit just right. It took time, so don't get frustrated with it when it takes you a little more time than you might expect to translate a 3-word sentence. So we have graphe, and if you want this in your book, then you can look on page 33. Doulos, nomon. We haven't learned the vocabulary yet, but the vocabulary is somewhat simple in that we have cognates. And I'll just tell you what the vocabulary words mean when you don't know them anyway. The first word, we've seen it, we've learned it, we should know what to do with it, right? What is it?
He writes.
He writes, good. So for those of us who are like me when I first started learning Greek, we divide this word up. It's from grapho, which means I write, but we have our person number ending here, which tells us he, she, or it writes. To further explain this, you may think I'm being a little too analytical, but we will see why I'm doing it. This is called our person number suffix, but it is also the internal subject. Why did I do that? Because our translation, he writes, will become obsolete in just a second. Okay, so graphe, doulos, nomon. Does anybody know what doulos means? Slave. All right, so my wife is pregnant and she's thinking of getting a doula. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of them. They assist in the birthing process. They are slaves or servants. Now, we wouldn't call them slaves now, I hope you wouldn't, but that's where the word comes from. So it means slave or servant. Now let's do to doulos exactly what we did to the the verb graphe. What is the root of doulos? The lexical form of doulos is doulos, but we take the ending off, and this is going to be redundant for this, but we take the ending off, then we add the ending from this group, which is the os ending, and it tells us what case is it? Nominative. And that's the number is singular. If I were to ask you to decline this noun for me, you'd give me nominative, singular, and one other thing. Masculine. Good. So we know that this is the nominative. How does it function in the sentence?
It's the subject.
Good. It's the subject of the sentence, based upon our English examples earlier. Now translate graphe doulos.
The slave writes?
Yes. But not quite.
What's the last word?
A slave rights,
Oh.
right? We don't have a definite article yet. A slave, or if you want to be more nice, servant rights. Naaman.
Name?
Law.
Law. So we have the biblical book what?
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy, good. So if this helps you at all, Deuteronomy. Namas. Deuter means second.
I
Namas.
always thought that was Hebrew.
It's a Greek. I think it's actually Latin.
Is it?
And, no, lex is law in Latin, so it's Greek. Yeah.
I don't want to sidetrack you, but how does the word nominative relate to novice?
Nominative. It does not.
Okay.
I read about that, and at fear of misspeaking, I will table that, and I'll get back to you. But nominative is actually from a Greek word that talks about the subject. So, anyway, so this means law, plain and simple. It is from what word? Like I said, I have the tendency to write things I don't say.
The alcohol fumes get you.
All right, so yeah, the pen fumes. From law.
Where was it?
What is the word that it comes from? We haven't learned it quite yet, but see, this is when we learn our vocabulary. We haven't gotten there, so it's from namas. So if we were to take this form and segment it off, now we know that it's from namas, so it's masculine. Good. And now let's match this up over with our endings. So asu, o, on, accusative.
So if you didn't know that was masculine, you could get sidetracked to think that was singular neuter.
That's what that was the point I was making earlier. If you don't know it's masculine, then you have all of these options open.
So I just made that mistake myself.
If you see that it is masculine, these options are no longer options, and it's just this.
Okay.
So masculine, singular, I just gave it to you. Masculine, accusative, singular. So as the accusative, it's functioning how?
Is the object?
Oh, good.
Direct.
Direct object. Now finish translating.
Slave rights, a law.
Good. Questions about that?
Is there a feminine noun for slave? Or will it always be a male slave?
There is a feminine noun. It is...
But that doesn't indicate the gender of the noun. I mean, you can have...
Yes. No, not in this instance, no. Remember, this is not always corresponding to anatomical gender. This is just the gender of the noun. There are other ways to indicate gender in Greek. So for instance, I think that Wendy asked me about it last week. The word theos means God. It has the os ending for masculine. But in her vocabulary app, she asked why it was also feminine. Well, that form is masculine, but if I were to do this, this still keeps it masculine, because this is the masculine article. So now it's God, but if I did hey, theos, it now becomes feminine. So it now becomes goddess.
Mm.
There are times, though... No. No. Next time we meet, we will do that. Next time. All right, we'll do another sentence. I equated our conjugations last week with much like doing a math proof. We don't always have to go through those steps. But going through those steps and showing the work allows us to get into the routine of doing it. With Greek, it's very, very systematic. Like I said, it's mathematical in its precision almost. That's not to say other languages aren't like that. What we view to be exceptions in other languages are often according to rules we just don't know. But what I just did there is a very, very long way of translating a sentence. But it gets your mind working. It gets your mind looking for those details. So if you are not translating them very quickly, know that I had to do that very same thing when I learned it first. We each have to. So don't get discouraged. Just keep on checking your forms. Memorize your forms. Check them against what you know. Check them against the book. Gnoskete thanaton. All right, let's go through it. First verb comes from what word? Good. Gnosko. Comes from gnosko. It means I know. So far as the lexical definition is concerned, we do what? We segment it out. We have the person number suffix, which means second plural. Now translate that.
Y'all know.
Good. Okay. Phonaton. It means looking at the book.
Yeah.
Do it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it means death. Phonaton is death. What is it from? Thanatos. All right, so if it's from thanatos, what is the first thing we learn about it? It is a masculine noun, right? Now let's divide it out. Thanat is our root. We have an on ending. We know it's masculine, so we check our masculine os, u, o. Found it, on. There aren't any other similarities there, so it's the accusative singular. Functioning how in a sentence? Good, direct object. Now translate the whole thing.
Y'all know that.
Now, death is an abstract noun, and in order to put it into more idiomatic English, we could leave it very literally like, you all know a death, or you know death.
Are you getting the John 1:1 thing, or is that later?
John 1:1.
The beginning was the word was a God, the God. Is that
We'll
later?
get in that in a very, very long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But hopefully we will, and many other things.
Alright, this is a stupid question.
And no questions are, especially at this point.
How did you know that was a direct object? Because there was nothing else in the sentence.
You knew it because remember we said thanaton was from thanatos.
Yeah.
Thanatos was masculine.
Right.
It had to have been accusative, and so far our limited knowledge tells us that the only thing that the accusative functions as at the moment is a direct object. There's those very intense qualifying words. The only thing we know at the moment. Another sentence. And as you notice, this is kind of like a graded, so far, not like I'm going to grade it for you, but it starts very easy and progressively gets harder in good translations. Usen myself in rank. Adelphoi, doulos. First thing we do. Luusen. From? Means. Good. I loose. Or destroy. Next thing we do with this. Somebody that's not speaking up. We do what with this?
Person, number, suffix.
Good. Person, number, suffix. Usen, which is someone else.
They.
Good. They, which is in technical grammatical stuff, third plural. So translating this now is they loosen, or loose, or destroy, whichever one you prefer. Now before we get too far ahead of ourselves, this might change. Adelphoi. What do we do with Adelphoi? First it's from, come on, you don't need to look at your vocabulary for this. Adelphoi from, we'd have the word Philadelphia, the city of
Brotherly love.
Brotherly love. So, in case you're interested,
It's a cognate.
Philos means love, and Delphos, which is Adelphos, which is love, so the city of brotherly love. We can't always do that with verbs or words, but in this instance,
Brother.
yes. What did I say?
Love.
Again, love.
It's don't love his brother.
This is going to be a regular feature of this class, so I hope you get used to it. All right, so this is from Adelphos. This is one of those instances where your gender matches, it says masculine, right? Os ending. We do what with this? Oi. Trying to match it up over here. Tell me about it. Masculine.
First,
Not first.
nominative,
Yes.
plural.
Good.
First person, plural.
Not first person. We're getting into the habit of mixing,
Okay.
of mixing categories from the verbs to the nouns,
Okay.
because it's the first thing up here. But don't do that, because try to keep yourselves from doing that. It happens all the time. When you do, you'll start getting nouns and verbs mixed up. So, masculine, nominative, plural.
Hey, no, it's not vocative.
Yeah, that's what I want.
How do you know? Okay.
There's no exclamation mark.
We will see in the sentence. We guess and checking.
It wouldn't have a verb associated with it.
And there is one associated with this one. So in our vocative, the vocative itself is not a part of the grammatical sentence.
Oh, okay.
So if I say, James, go to the store, right? James is not a part of that verb clause. If we were to write it in English, it'd almost be its own clause. James, go to the store. Go is a different person in number than James. In this instance, we have a plural that happens to match with our plural. And brothers are going to be third person.
Oh.
You is second person. You will have you pronouns. I is first person. It will be first person pronouns. But virtually any other noun will be third person, either singular or plural. Does that make sense? When it's functioning as the subject, that is. And now we just got to that. So it's functioning how in the sentence?
It's the subject.
As the subject. Now translate.
Brothers loosen
Good.
or brothers destroy.
So then we act that as our tentative subject. Now we have brothers destroy,
Laws.
do loose. Now mas was
Oh, that's right.
law. For do loose, we separate it out and say dul or the lexical form is
Say accusative plural.
doulos. We have our us ending, and we come over here. We know it's masculine because of doulos. Os, u, o, on, e, oi, ois, us. Accusative plural. Masculine, accusative, plural, functioning how in a sentence? Direct object. So finish translating the sentence, someone else? Brothers destroy slaves. Not very nice brothers.
They listen.
Set them free.
That's
Is
better.
there a different word for that?
Well, you destroy the chain.
No, I think that there is a different word for that, to set free. It could be they loosen their chains, yes.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have doulos, you'd have the word for chain.
Yeah.
Of the slaves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much wraps up.
Is it?
It does. So, questions? Any questions, please, before we leave? This is a lot to digest. I'm going to say tentatively that I will have more examples of this on the website in a video form so that you can go specifically to that if you're having troubles with translating. Hopefully I will have the time to do that. No other questions about this? Yes?
How can we learn about more, how do you say, vocabulary? That's it.
How do you, what do you
How
mean?
can we get more vocabulary? Like, more vocabulary.
Well, your vocabulary is on, from the last lesson, it was on page 23. And getting a larger vocabulary is very important. If you think you can get what's already here, and then for the next lesson, this lesson, you can go to the back of the book and learn as much vocabulary as you want. But the better thing to do right now is just to learn the vocabulary associated with the lesson. We don't want your vocabulary getting bigger than the exercises are getting, simply because I want you to focus on the grammatical aspects and nail those down first. Once you do that, with a smaller vocabulary, you have less options with all of these options running through your head. Then we'll build your vocabulary. But homework, as I said, learn the declensions, masculine and neuter. Asu, o, on. Oi, on, ois, us. Anu, o, on. A, on, ois, a. When you're going through that, you can always cut out the vocative except for this, because the vocative, except for the masculine singular, will always be the same. If that helps you to go faster in learning it. Do those two things. Learn your vocabulary, learn your declensions, reread the lesson, make sure I hit everything. And then we got through the first 3 exercises. Do as many as you can, as always, but try to do even numbers up until 18. Yes. Should be about 7 or 8. Check up on the website if there's any new content there. Re-listen to the lecture if you need to. Email me if you need to. Please do all of those things. I'm here for you. I will answer your questions when you have them. And again, the quizzes. Do them. Give them to me. Let me see how you're doing. please do that. All right?